I did my research proposal on PTSD and how it affects decision making. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, can affect many aspects of an individual. It changes the function of the amygdala, which is responsible for flight or fight response, and the prefrontal cortex, which is the area of the brain responsible for making rational, intelligent decisions. PTSD results from some sort of trauma experienced by an individual, including but not limited to violence, war, intimate partner betrayal, such as cheating or financial betrayal, things like that. Also, severe abuse. You see PTSD most often in first responders, veterans, but you can also see it in everyday civilians who experience any of these things. It could be violence within the home, violence in a community, abuse, things like that. A person that experiences PTSD for a prolonged period of time experiences or can experience enlargement of the amygdala and shrinking of the prefrontal cortex. This doesn't always happen in every individual with PTSD, but it can happen. What this does is it heightens the response of the brain, feeling like they are constantly in survival mode. Can this exposure to PTSD affect the individual's ability to make everyday decisions? My first article that I chose for this was titled Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder in the U.S. Warfighter, Sensitivity to Punishment and Antidepressant Use. So the hypothesis for this article was PTSD affects emotion-based decision-making performance in individuals with PTSD. The study was accomplished by giving participants the standard Iowa gambling tasks and the variant Iowa gambling task. These two tests are based on positive and negative reinforcement, and measures of mood symptoms were compared between U.S. active duty soldiers diagnosed with PTSD and then those without PTSD. The results were soldiers with PTSD had difficulty making optimal decisions, which appears to be attributed to hypersensitivity to immediate punishment and insensitivity to delayed reward. The amygdala and the prefrontal cortex is the title of my next article I used. Their hypothesis was the amygdala and prefrontal cortex are complementary, or they work together in intelligent decision making. These two authors reviewed previous studies done on this topic to find a connection between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex in decision making. They found that the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex do play complementary roles in the process of co-constructing intelligent decisions, and that intelligent behavior requires interaction between these regions. So both the amygdala and the PFC support functions related to value, cognition, and self-regulation. My last article I used was Self-Compassion and Cognitive Flexibility in Trauma-Exposed Individuals with and Without PTSD. The hypothesis was they compared self-compassion and cognitive flexibility in trauma-exposed individuals with and without post-traumatic stress disorder. So subjects were divided into two groups, those with PTSD, those without. And they responded to demographic questionnaires, self-compassion scales, and cognitive ability questionnaires individually. Then that data was collected. The results showed that those with PTSD had lower scores with cognitive flexibility, self-compassion, and components of self-compassion, including kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. They also showed findings of shortcomings associated with failures of self, cognitive flexibility, that are associated with PTSD. My hypothesis for my study was post-traumatic stress disorder has an effect on decision-making capabilities due to increased hypervigilance, which affects the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. My participants will be individuals with and without PTSD as diagnosed using the DSM-5. There will be both males and females. All ages will be eligible, though may not be represented with those within the study. I will not exclude based on profession or income level. And the participants will be put in two groups, those with PTSD and those without PTSD. The materials will consist of questionnaires given to the participants to complete on their own, and then also personal interviews one-on-one with study officials and a participant. My procedure will be participants will be given the questionnaire and asked to rate their view of their ability to make decisions. They will also be asked specific questions and timed on the response for that decision to see how quickly or how slowly they make certain decisions. Participants will then be taken into a room one-on-one with a study official and given scenarios where the participant will be asked to make decisions based on a situation, but also be able to give advice or feedback on a scenario where they are not the person involved in that decision themselves, but basically helping a friend or a family member. My expected results will show that those with PTSD will be less likely to make decisions or more apprehensive to make decisions, especially those that are emotion-based. Participants with PTSD will also show more anxiety with the tasks due to increased activity in the amygdala. Those participants without PTSD will show that they do not have increased anxiety when faced with the different questions or scenarios, and they will be able to make emotion-based questions more easily than those with the PTSD. In the end, our final results will show that PTSD results in difficulty making emotion-based decisions due to increased activity in the amygdala and decreased activity in the PFC. Since the amygdala and PFC have been shown to be complementary with decision-making, this would affect the PFC's ability to perform optimally.